Genre.
In the world of Hollywood, movies get greenlit and redlit. They get remade and rebooted. But we are the ideal. I'm Sam Gasch, and you are listening to Ideal Remake. Thank you for listening to Ideal Remake. We take movies that either have been, will be, or should be remade and talk about what the ideal version of that remake would be. Today, we're recording from LA while some of my listeners are stuck in Tucson. We're talking about Romy and Michele's high school reunion with returning guest, Josh Koffman. So, Josh, is Romy and Michele a movie that has been, will be, or should be remade?
I think I can say should be / could be with qualifications. You know, this movie to me is an almost perfect comedy. I've probably seen it 30 times. Can I actually start with a little anecdote, Sam, that reminds me of you?
Okay.
So when I first met Sam, we were in a writing group together, and as I learned more about him, he mentioned that he had family in Tucson, and I believe it was for maybe a Jewish High Holy Day. He was returning to Tucson to see the family. And I said to him, "Whoa, woo, Tucson, here we come." Let me do that again. And I said, "Whoa, Tucson, here we come." And Sam looked at me like I had 3 heads. And I was like, "Wait, you've never seen Romy and..." Like, he had not seen Romy and Michele. The joke totally landed on deaf ears. So I'm really so happy that he has finally seen this, especially being from Tucson.
Yeah, well, this is genuinely the first time I've watched V. For whatever reason, I have a weird aversion to watching content that takes place in my hometown, and I don't know why. So until I needed to watch it for this podcast, I'd never seen Romy and Michele. I've still never watched Hamlet 2. Like, I'm sure there are other things that take place in Tucson. Like, I kind of... I stopped watching Last Man on Earth, but I was enjoying that. I just never got back to it. I don't know. There's a fair number of Tucson content, like a surprising number of Tucson content.
But you watch things that take place in LA.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Like it's just, it's like so Tucson specific. Like, I lived in New York, and it's not like I wouldn't watch things that happened in New York. Like, even, I grew up in Boston. It's like I would watch things that took place in Boston. Tucson, man, like, what is it with Tucson and your aversion to Tucson stories?
I wasn't not watching them for any particular reason. It just, for whatever reason, I just didn't.
I don't mean to put you on the spot or anything.
No, because one of the things I'm going to be bringing up is it was weird watching this movie because I've done this. Like, everything that happens in this movie is a thing I have done. Not everything, but, like, obviously the less heightened versions of everything. But, like, the idea of I'm living in Tucson, or I'm sorry,
it's super relatable.
Specifically to me. I'm living in LA, and I went back to Tucson for my 10-year high school reunion. I did this. This is an experience I had, and I had to, like, go back and tell people about living in LA. And I don't know why I never watch these movies, but it was always one of those movies I'm like, I'll have a reason to watch it eventually. It just wasn't ever a priority.
Right. I got some years on you, Sam. And I actually was able to watch this before my 10-year reunion because it came out quite a bit before my 10-year reunion. But I probably watched this 10 times before my 10-year reunion because I knew that there'd be so much... I mean, I guess in my mind, I was thinking that there'd be similarities. I didn't say that I invented Post-its, but there was like... I don't know, like there's a lot of kernels of truth to the story.
I mean, part of me wishes I'd watched this movie prior to my 10-year high school reunion, because I then would have gone back to Tucson and said I invented Post-its just to see who got the reference, because how many other people get to say they're at their 10-year high school reunion in Tucson, Arizona, and now it's just a missed opportunity.
And actually, Sam, I'm surprised that no one else at your reunion even did this. Like, how weird is that?
Well, they might have, but I didn't know. I would have been the person who didn't get the joke. Like, if someone walked up to me and said they invented Post-its, I would have looked at them like they were crazy. I didn't know.
So I gotta ask you, are you glad that you finally saw it?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I needed to. This is necessary viewing for Tucsonans.
Yeah.
It was interesting watching this movie so close to watching Heathers for the first time for Movie Club, in that both kind of tread on the idea of, well, high school wasn't great. And I genuinely enjoyed high school. Like, I liked high school. I still have some of my closest friends in the world that I met in high school.
I think you might be, like, in a minority.
It's a distinct possibility. Because, like, obviously these movies are extremely popular, and everyone is like, oh, high school. But, like, I can't say high school was the best time of my life. That's, like, the kind of quintessential, like, oh, gosh, high school. But so I don't think I emotionally connect to these movies the same way that a lot of people do, simply because I don't have that same feeling.
Right. That's fair enough. Myself and everybody that I know was miserable in high school, so I might just take it as a given. Which is not fair.
That's fair.
For people like yourself who actually did have a good time in high school. Were you also, like, part of an A group that also, like, put other kids down, or was cliquey, or...
I was a theater kid who was playing Magic the Gathering and Werewolf in the band room. I was 100% a nerd. But I had lots of nerd friends, and, like, it was a big nerd, goofy community, and, like, just enjoyed hanging out with each other. And it was great. And I had friends who were probably in the more popular circles, and it's not like I was getting invited to or going to any parties, but, like, even just among the theater kids, like, a lot of the theater kids were super popular, but we were all friends. And it's like how I've never really connected to any of these high school cliquey movies, because while there were certainly friend groups, my high school never felt that cliquey.
Right. Yeah, my high school was definitely cliquey. And, I certainly had a friend group, and we all definitely were nerds. But we knew, I don't know, I guess, like, we knew our place on the pecking order, And there definitely was a pecking order status. And everyone was very status conscious. So I definitely related to that in the movie. And in Heathers, I guess, for that matter. Yeah.
And that's reasonable. I think that there's a bit more of a social leveling out now, but I'm sure there are still cliques and cool kids and not cool kids and everything now, just because kids will always be kids. But I don't know. Like I said, I lived this movie. My experience wasn't exactly the same, but, like, the crazy thing about going back to Tucson for my 10-year high school reunion is that most of the people who attended the Tucson 10-year high school reunion were the people who were visiting from out of town. So the way it was set up, it was actually over, like, Thanksgiving weekend.
Yeah.
And so most of the people who were locals didn't show up, because that's also the weekend, because Tucson's a big college town, and that, like, University of Arizona's in Tucson, and that's the weekend when University of Arizona plays Arizona State University. Tucson plays Phoenix, and it's a big football game. So basically all the locals were at that game or watching that game and didn't show up to the reunion.
Right.
And so everybody who was there, for the most part, were the out-of-towners or just, like, the people who didn't care about sports. So I remember meeting a lot of people who turned out to be PhDs and doctors, who I wasn't expecting to be PhDs and doctors.
Huh. Yeah, I guess similarly, like, I think one thing that's also true that this movie brings out is when I went to my high school reunion, like, the A-list kids tended to stay locally and tended to, like, lead, well, a lot of the A-list kids peaked in high school, let's just put it that way. And all the interesting, or a lot of the interesting kids managed to quote-unquote get away or escape, from where we had all grown up. And so there is a sense of satisfaction coming back that, like, people who could have been bullies or tormentors, that was their peak. They peaked early, and it was downhill from there. What's the German word?
Schadenfreude.
Thank you.
So here's my question for you. Could you name, like, right now, can you name whoever was, like, the most popular person in your high school class?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
You cannot.
Because I'm thinking about it, and I don't think I can.
Interesting.
No.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that's just not my experience. And it's possible there was such a person. Like, there were certainly... I remember there were, like, the cliquey cool kids. But I remember one of their names, maybe, and that's because I had a class with her my senior year. And it was a rock climbing class, and everyone was super chill in that classroom, and it was not classroom, but like gym, and it was awesome and fun. I don't know. I'm beginning to think that like what I thought was just like everyone's high school experience might have just been me, and I got lucky.
Yeah, maybe. But then again, you know, I mean, I'm not that close now with a lot of high school friends. Well, so this actually brings up the other thing in terms of the remake, and I don't know if you want to get into it now, but you know, are high school reunions now even relevant now that we have social media that did not exist in 1997?
Honestly, they may not be, because there's certainly people from high school that we stay in touch with, and so I'm at exactly the age where when I went to college and then was able to join Facebook. I previously had not been able to join Facebook because prior to that, you needed a college-specific email address. And so that was my freshman year. And then over the course of my freshman, sophomore year, Facebook kind of got opened up to everybody, and everybody got a Facebook, and kind of like the beginnings of social media. Like,
did you have a MySpace or like a pre-Facebook social media?
Most of my friends did. I did not, because I didn't care about it. I still don't really care about social media, but like I do it anyway.
Yeah, I didn't have MySpace either, or yeah, you know, it's funny. Like the people that I am in touch with from high school, I want to be in touch with, and we basically keep in touch through social media.
Yep.
So I don't know if this is jumping too far ahead already, but like, you know, when you had asked me,
no, go for it.
Should it be remade? Like, it definitely is of a specific time and place, which I kind of love because it is just so 90s, as you pointed out in your text to me, the flip phone, which is kind of hysterical, like the size of a brick. Yeah, because like this is like there's no way that this movie could exist today because of social media. So I think if it were to be changed or updated, there'd have to be a social media element where Romy and Michele create their new lives, but they're doing it through social media. So, like, they have to create, like, a fabulous Instagram account. Or, like, you know, create that they're going on these wild adventures or hooking up with the hottest guys or, you know, that they're these hot influencers. And, like, I think the only way you could do it. Like, it's just so much harder these days to... It's also harder to fake anything because of social media. Like, does that make sense?
I mean, the other argument is that it's much easier to fake things on social media. Like, you can create a social media account that says anything.
Right.
The real trick will be, like, figuring out how to get a blue check mark.
Right.
And, like, you can come up with any number of different things or whatever, like... And you don't even need to... Like, I'm sure there are different ways that you can fake something over social media, especially if you're particularly adept at it. Like, I think absolutely everything in this movie is still doable, but I think you need to kind of update the language a little bit. Like, there's anyone who's... Like, everyone always talks about how, like, we only really get to see the way people are trying to be perceived over social media, and we're not actually getting to know who they are in actuality. And I think that can kind of be our theme for our remake, in that even when they're, like, all of these kids had social media in high school, and they had the things that they were trying to be seen as when they were in high school. Let's say they continue that for 10 years, and they still have this perception that they want people to see them as, that's separate from who they actually are. Like, for me, I was playing Magic the Gathering in the band room in high school, but what if I only wanted to be seen as, like, the theater kid?
Right.
Then I would have only had theater kid stuff on my social media, but I was still doing all this other nerd stuff anyway. Like, it's all kind of about, I think, what I think our theme is going to end up being, who you want to be seen as versus who you actually are, and then finding a way to marry those two things together and being comfortable with those two things being the same.
Yeah. I think you're right. And I think that, like you said, there's still so much deception in social media. Like that hasn't really been explored a lot. And, like, what better place for it to blow up in your face than a high-stakes high school reunion?
Yeah. I mean, especially if they've been kind of crafting this lie for 10 years and it just, like, all comes tumbling down. But it all comes tumbling down for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, because I also want to talk about the resolution of this guy... this guy Michelle was mean to in high school comes back, is still in love with her, takes her and her friend away in a helicopter, and then just gives her a bunch of money.
Yeah.
So, like, they win, but through no real action of their own. It just, they're lucky that this guy was still in love with one of them who happened to be rich.
Yes. Yeah.
What I think is a more interesting story is the story of Heather Mooney.
Heather Mooney is my spirit animal. I love Heather Mooney.
I mean, she's great. She's my favorite part of this movie.
Yeah, agreed. And yeah.
Because she has an arc, she learns a lesson, and she changes over the course of the movie, as opposed to Romy and Michele, who kind of, they get money but remain the same.
Well, they get their friendship back. And they realize that that's more important
They
than
get their
anything.
friendship. Right, but that's... At the start of the movie, that's who they were anyway. They returned to the stasis that they were at the start of the movie. What I would say changed is a further comfort with that stasis, although now, of course, they have money in their own store. As opposed to Heather Mooney, who, successful career person, had developed all these things, but probably wasn't necessarily happy with herself and still looked back on everything kind of with this jaded perspective. Yeah, and then kind of was, over the course of this movie, was able to let that bitterness go and was able to find joy and kind of recognize that she wasn't alone in this experience, that it was, in fact, a shared experience that she had with all these other people.
Yeah. I still think, though, that she's going to continue being, like, a bitter, sarcastic person, though, right?
Oh, yeah. I don't think it changes fundamentally who she is as a person, but I think it will change her outlook and perhaps be less bitter. Like, she'll still be a sarcastic Janine Garofalo type, but I think she'll be less... I think it'll be less I'm alone and more, yeah, everything sucks for everybody, right? Instead of just sucking for just me.
Yeah, I mean, yes. Maybe more empathetic.
Yes.
Yeah, I can see that.
What are some aspects of Romy and Michele that you think are important? Like, what are the important things that you think need to be kept?
Oh, wow. Definitely the friendship between the two of them. You know, that's... I really think that Lisa Kudrow and Mira Sorvino knocked this out of the park with their performances. I really believed when I watched this that there was a history between them. There was a chemistry between them. I believe that they were best friends. And I don't know if you want to talk about this, Sam. Like, my high school, in my class, I know who the Romy and Michele was. I'm not going to say names, but my class
really?
had... Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Like, you know, like the two goofy friends who sort of, like, were in their own world and, like, you know, just, like marched to the beat of their own drummer who people thought were kind of weird, but they were, you know, outgoing and they didn't give two flying fucks what anyone else thought. Well, they did, but I don't know, they still marched to their own drummer. Yeah, and, like, I sort of, you know, it warmed my heart to recognize those women in my class, like, with Romy and Michele. So definitely the relationship between the two of them, I think, has to be kept. In terms of other elements, I think Heather Mooney has to be kept. You know, casting-wise, I agree.
Oh, yeah, I don't necessarily want to cut any characters. Like, I agree. I think all the characters and like the arcs that the individual characters go through, I think is still good and valid and important, with the possible exception of Sandy Frink.
Right, right. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know. So I guess, like, are you thinking in terms of plot, like what could go?
Yeah, like what are some elements of the story? Like, because obviously it's a tale about friendship, and I think that's necessary. I think it needs to be about pretending to be something you're not when you go back to meet these people from when you were a kid. I think all that's important because that's what the movie is.
Right.
I'm kind of thinking in terms of, like, do you want our Romy and Michele to be costume designers? Because, like, even from the beginning of the movie, we know that that's how it's going to end up, of them getting this costume designer gig and, like, designing their own line of clothing. That's still something that they could do, but I'm open to them doing other things. Do you want everyone to be an inventor? Like, what are these things that 28-year-olds can do to consider themselves successful? Because, again, they're
they're 28-year-olds, but they're not very bright. So I might be out of the age demographic. I hate to say, like, I don't know. Well, that said, like, I don't know what not too bright 28-year-olds do today. I also don't know if back in 1997 it was realistic for not too bright 28-year-olds to have an amazing brick loft on Venice Beach. Like, I don't know if there was license taken with that.
Yeah, their apartment was gorgeous.
Oh, yeah.
And amazing, and that's $1 million apartment.
Right. Yeah, I wanted to make sure I wasn't like, well, maybe in 1997 things weren't that expensive, but they must have been. It's right on the beach in a great part of Venice.
Yeah. Yes, there's no way it wasn't.
Yeah, so it makes you wonder, like, one of them's unemployed and one of them's a cashier at a car shop. What else are they doing to get that swanky pad?
I mean, the thing that a lot of people respect, the thing that a lot of young people do now that gets, like, a lot of respect are being various kinds of influencers. But there's different kinds of influencers. Like, there's just kind of like the social media Instagram model. But there's also, like, I was watching a video on YouTube the other day. It was someone breaking down the Avatar: The Last Airbender movie. And it was this deep, insightful conversation as to why it failed and everything else that was going on. And then he made a crack about how his life was coming to an end soon because he was about to turn 25.
Oh, God.
And I died a little inside.
Yeah.
What the shit?
I can picture them being influencers still in the world of maybe makeup, or I feel like it's something, when I think of 28-year-old influencers, especially women, there is a big market for looks, like for apparel, for fashion, for makeup, for what have you. And I can see them doing well, or even pretending to do well in that space.
There was someone I went to college with who, after college, I think made money for a time on Instagram, being like an Instagram model influencer. And what she was doing is whenever she did a post, it was some sort of makeup art on her face that was not necessarily just like, hey, here's a cool makeup tutorial. No, it was like she painted like a Van Gogh on her face or something and like took a picture of that. And like those were all the different things she posted. Like, I wish I knew, I'm sure I could Google her name and find it, but like that was her thing that she did for a while post-college.
Right.
But there's like a lot of different ways of like reaching out and reaching a large number of people and being very insightful. Like even podcasting, for example. Like, I could lie and say I've got all these different people and listeners and followers, and since I'm not answering to advertisers, people can believe me.
Right.
I don't, but, like, overall, like, no one else sees, like, even for Netflix, no one sees the numbers. They can say whatever they want.
Right.
And I think that that's true for people on the internet. It's so much easier to lie.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, think about the world of online. I was going to say, think about the world of online dating, and how many men claim to be, 6'2", or totally get that.
I've spoken as someone who actually is 6'2".
I've spoken, yes,
or however tall you actually are.
I actually am 6'2". Yes, I keep my dating profile accurate, mostly.
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 Good.
Good.
Funny.
We'll leave it at that.
Awesome. But yeah, so that's kind of what I'm thinking in terms of the lie. And now I think it'd be fun kind of coming up with appropriate. So, like, do we then also want them to be making their own clothing, or do we want them to be making their own internet content in some way?
Huh.
I mean, it's hard to argue with kind of like the iconic looks of the movie, but
Yeah. And it also is like in terms of a film medium, clothing is definitely visual and I don't know. I mean, I can see going either way. I can see, content, I can see it being done. It would just be harder to reveal.
you know what might be fun? What we could do is, because it's clothing, especially as perceived over the internet, we could have the Christy Masters character also being like a designer, like Instagram, posting pictures of like cool designs and clothing and everything. And they look great in the picture, but then Romy and Michele are making things that they actually then wear out and about. And they're not good photographers, so they don't necessarily look great in the picture, but their clothing is actual clothing that's real and works. As opposed to Christy Masters, as soon as she like leaves frame, it just completely falls apart.
Right.
I don't know how that would work though, but like something along those lines.
Yeah, I can see something along those lines working out. Or maybe like that could also play into, they're not very bright. Maybe they just aren't very business savvy. They're trying to create this online presence and it's just not working out for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's something that Sandy Frink can help them with.
Yeah, because we all know some high school nerd is going to be the king of social media. I mean...
Yeah, exactly.
Who knows? They see the paradigm, they see the shifts, they see the technology.
Right.
So because Heather Mooney is your spirit animal, what is Heather Mooney's success? Like, I feel like inventing a faster burning cigarette paper doesn't really carry to now. What would she have done now that's completely, I would say, separate from the internet?
Oh, God. Separate from the internet.
Yeah. I mean, we could have everybody's success be connected to the internet, or she could be the one person who's not. Up to you. Like, what do you think?
Well, because initially I was thinking, like, if we are going with the internet thing, like, she created a way to, like, I don't know, like, illegally download, videos or something, or, or she created, like, OnlyFans.
She created OnlyFans?
Like, the concept.
That's funny.
Something, or actually, it would actually be funnier if Sandy Frink created OnlyFans.
I like the idea, and I like the idea of that. I feel like OnlyFans, while I think OnlyFans will continue, I feel like that's something a lot of people are talking about now and might not necessarily be evergreen. And especially the idea of a guy creating a web... I mean, I don't know who created OnlyFans now, but the idea of a dude creating something as a... I don't know. Like, it's a good idea, and it makes me uncomfortable, which might be why it's a good idea.
Or, just maybe something in the world of, like, porn sharing. And I don't know why I'm sticking on porn, but I feel like, because porn is, like, always a moneymaker and is going to be evergreen.
It is.
I feel like a really smart kid would have thought of how to take advantage of that.
I mean, a lot of the smart internet kids now are the ones who are figuring out how to do, like, stock investments in Bitcoin and all that.
Right. But is that going to be evergreen?
I don't know. They certainly think so. Actually, that brings me to my next question. When do you want to set this movie? Because this movie kind of is 1997 and is very, very much 1997. Do you want our movie to take place in 2021, or do you want the movie to take place in 2015?
I think it has to take... If it is going to be remade at all, I think it has to be current. Because I think that's sort of the only justification to redo it. Like, and again, I know I liked the movie a lot more than you do. So it does have like more of a sentimental value to me, I guess.
But I agree with that.
Like if I were not to roll my eyes at a remake, I better, they better damn make it relevant to today.
Well, what are the things that are the most relevant today? I mean, acknowledging the pandemic aside, what are the things that... What is the content that you absorb more than anything else?
I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm just going to speak off the top of my head. One of the things that's different from 1997, so in 1997, I was like barely out of college. But in order to meet people, be social, you had to go out. It wasn't until maybe, I don't know, like a year or two later that social media really took off. I mean, I do remember friends having MySpace, which I was never a part of. So I'm thinking like, I guess I'm thinking like back in 1997, at least for me, there was more of a sense of interconnectedness. Like you had to make an effort to see people in a way that you don't now. And not just because of the pandemic now, but because of social media. Like you can go months without seeing your friends and that's normal. And you can have like online relationships and that's normal. And that just wasn't normal in 1997. And I feel like now there's a sense of isolation that there wasn't in 1997. I think people are lonelier now than they were in 1997. Like like Romy Michele, I loved getting dressed up on the weekends and going out to clubs. I don't feel like there's a sense of need or desire to meet people in big social settings like there was back then. And I just feel like they're like in some ways a sense of community's been eroded.
I tend to agree with that, and I think especially with Facebook and Instagram and everything, in that like the characters that we have would only be a couple of years younger than me, but there's certainly plenty of people who I only see the pictures they post, and everything they post on the internet is at a certain angle or whatever. And so then if I went and saw them in real life, all of a sudden they look different than the version of them that I have in my head. And I think that's kind of the line that we need to cross of, like, even though we're connected with all these people, until you actually meet up with them and share time with them and a drink with them and a meal with them in real life, you don't really know who they are, which is kind of back to my original point.
Yeah.
Because, like, we can go in and we can see the pictures of all the Christy Masters or whomever, and we can have 10 years worth of social media posts, but then you see her in real life and you realize that she's nothing like any of that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's more interesting of... I mean, I know that it's not an original idea to be said, but like... And I know that some people very easily and absolutely make lifelong friendships over the internet. But at the end of the day, we're social creatures, and one of the things that the pandemic's gotten in the way of is being social and going and meeting and seeing other human beings.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the things that this needs to be, and like the whole getting out and experiencing stuff. Like, oh, well, we took all these pictures at these different places and we made it look really good, but we never actually played mini golf. We never actually jumped in this lake. We just took the picture in front of it. It's like, so there's this place in Los Angeles. So there's a place in Los Angeles called Runyon Canyon where people go and hike and they take pictures, and it's a very social media area. And if you hike Runyon Canyon, you can get to the top and take this amazing picture at the top of Runyon Canyon. What they don't really tell you is that it's also right near a road, and you can park near the top of Runyon Canyon, get out of your car, walk over, take a picture, get back in your car, and leave.
Yeah.
And people do that. Like I've seen people do that. Other people have seen people do that. It's a thing.
Wow.
And it's just more having the experience as opposed to sharing the experience.
Right.
And I feel like that would be our dumb old person writing this movie message.
Oh, I don't think that's dumb.
No, I don't think so either. But it's like our perspective on the way young people are living their lives.
Right. You know, I just started an Instagram account, and I've been putting it off, because it seems like it's a fucking full-time job to curate this perfect life and put it out there. And, like, who has the time for that?
Yeah, I only started an Instagram account because I wanted to promote this exact podcast, so I can't really judge.
Yeah, no, I get it. And, you know, as some, you know, I have a side gig doing stand-up comedy. And people are like, oh, let me go to your Insta. And I'm like, oh, my God, like, I need to get my Insta up. And it is just like,
yeah,
man, like there must be a lot of people with time on their hands.
For a lot of people, and like Instagram is expanding and they're having like the short form media, and there's a lot of people who don't post pictures and they only post stories, which I find super interesting. Like you go to their actual page and there's nothing, but they'll have different stories and things all day, and they're having these experiences and living this life publicly, and they're sharing it with everybody. And if that's what they enjoy doing, that's great. I don't want to yuck anyone else's yum.
Yeah.
It's just not for me.
Seems like a lot of effort. And also like we've been talking about, like how much of it is actually real, because it does seem the only word I can come up with is curated. Like you're putting out there what you want people to see, and it has to be perfect or as close to perfection as you can get. And that's not real life.
So there's those people, but then there's the people who are like the Twitch streamers who there's no editing. They're just doing the thing in front of people, and if it's a thing that people enjoy, they watch it. And I think that it's very much like content you control. You're your own boss, and you're doing this, and it's a tough market, but if you're able to provide content that people want, great, go for it by all means.
Right.
I feel like and that's something that where you can't really edit it after the fact, because you are literally living this experience on TV with other people. Like you're Truman showing yourself.
Right.
And I find that also super interesting. I have friends who do that.
Huh. Okay. My curiosity speaks.
And so I feel like that, if anything, that's, I mean, again, I'm trying not to be judgmental of anyone who does anything, but like at the end of the day, like that is going to end up being just as, if not more authentic than anything else anywhere else on the internet, because it is something live happening in that moment.
Right.
And it's like everyone else is living this experience with the person. I feel like that's super interesting. Like, because I feel like that is meeting in the middle of everything we're talking about. If getting to do an experience and have all of this life stuff happening online.
Yeah.
But also being online.
Yeah, I guess it is community building in some way, even if it's remote.
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely community building.
Yeah. Yeah.
I know people who do, like, I know that you were for a while looking into doing like tarot card readings. Like I know people who will do tarot card readings and things over Twitch, and it's very popular.
Yeah, I have a few friends who do that. Yeah. For better or for worse, it really is the way of the future.
Very much so. I don't know. So with our discussion about social medias and the different forms it takes in mind, what pieces do we want to take for our heroes? Where, like, especially if we take Romy and Michele, but online, what part of the online experience do we want Romy and Michele to be experiencing in? And do we want them having the same channel, or do we want them having different? Because it kind of makes sense that they would go into business together because they're so close.
Yeah, I think it would have to be the same. Thinking ahead, I also think we need to give some prominence to the Lisa Ludner character, who sort of becomes a good guy at the end. Because I think she is like going to be the ultra successful version of whatever Romy and Michele are, and then is able to like give them her blessing.
Yeah, I thought her character was interesting.
Yeah.
What was her character name? Was she
Lisa.
Was she Cheryl Quick?
I think she was Lisa.
That was Lisa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know, some other blonde.
Yeah.
And yes, I agree with that, because I thought that she was one of those people who kind of like the main character in Heathers was someone who like kind of was this alternative person, but was kind of confined by the needs of popularity in high school.
Yes.
I thought she was super interesting, and then she kind of like stuck with it. Was like, well, this is kind of the person I need to be, the people I need to hang out with. But as soon as she's like adult and away from all of that, she's like, oh, I don't need to stay in touch with any of these people. I can go off and do my own thing.
Right. Right.
I think she also had a good message and a good arc, and good for her.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
A good aspirational character who's like, I don't, like, even if I'm back in high school, I don't need to, as an adult, I don't need to go kind of slot back into the person that everyone perceives me as, because fuck that. This is the person who I am. I'm going to continue to be this person, because this person's rad as hell.
And I also like that she got to stick it to the A group at the end. Very satisfying.
I mean, wasn't she a part of the A group in high school?
High school, yeah, but she was able to stick it to the rest of the A group.
Right. That felt more like catharsis for everyone else and less like catharsis for her. It's more because it was more like her turning on her friends.
Yeah.
And because theoretically she liked her friends when she was in high school, but it's also possible that she didn't. Like, there's the whole Heathers line where I don't really like my friends very much. I don't really like your friends either.
Yeah. I don't think she ever really liked them. But, I'm sure that for the sake of popularity, kids do crazy shit, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also think that sometimes, like, these are the people you hang out with because they're the people you hang out with. Not because you like them in any way, but because going and finding new people to hang out with is really hard.
Yeah.
That's one of the hardest things about being an adult, especially an adult in a new city. Like, when I moved to LA, I didn't really know anybody. And finding new friends it took a while and it was difficult.
Yeah, finding new friends as an adult is tough.
Like, there's a lot of people who take classes partly to take the class, but mostly just so they can meet the people in the classroom, and because that's just the only way they've ever known how to meet friends.
Yeah. No, agreed. Social.
And no judgment. It works.
Yes. Or, like Romy Michele, you can go to AA.
Yes. I mean, the Hollywood deals happen at Alcoholics Anonymous.
That, or what's the other joke? Scientology.
I mean, yeah, but that's yeah.
You go to an AA meeting, but not Church of Scientology. That's where we are in this world.
I mean, look, you want to join any cult you want, you will make connections, but those connections will stay within the cult if it's Scientology. Whereas at Alcoholics Anonymous, theoretically, it doesn't have to just make deals with other Alcoholics Anonymous people.
That's true. Oh my God.
But yeah, like stuff like that. And I feel like that's another message, like, because they talk about how, I mean, because we can even talk about that in that they didn't really make any other friends in high school because they found each other. And like they all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, this amazing friend. And they can talk about how they don't really have, like, they didn't really make friends in high school and they didn't really make friends that much in Los Angeles just because, like, they know people that they're friendly with, but they're like, this is in whatever way you choose to use this phrase, this is their life partner. They found their person. Romantic or not, this is the person they want to hang out with.
One of my so you made me think of two things. If there was a section that I would consider cutting considerably, it would be the midsection dream sequence, which does kind of tend to go on and on and on. But there's this one line at the end of the sequence, which I love, which is when they're old ladies in amazing makeup and prosthetics. And an old Sandy Frank asks Michelle, honey, have you been unhappy with me? And she says, no, you've been wonderful. I've just been so lonely with no one to talk to. And I love that line because they're not mutually exclusive. Like, she can have this amazing marriage with Sandy and this amazing life together, but still feel like there's a part of her that's missing, or a part of her, a friend part of her that's just as important.
Yeah.
Because, you also, don't you have those friends who, like, the minute they're in a relationship, you never hear from them again, and the minute the relationship ends, they're suddenly on your doorstep, and you're like, what the fuck?
Yes.
Yes, we all do. And they get really annoying.
We all do.
Yes. So I just love that line and that acknowledgement, like that you can have a relationship and still need that friendship level that's just not fulfilled in a relationship.
Yeah, I think so. I think that different relationships fulfill different mental and social needs, and yeah, absolutely. And basically, with the exception of romance, they filled all of the social needs of for each other, and I think that's kind of wonderful.
Yes. Yes, true.
In terms of like actually crafting this movie, we've talked about a lot of things. What do you want for Romy and Michele? What do you want them to be doing?
God, I still don't know. Like, maybe I don't know how long this fat, quote unquote fat is going to go, but TikTok is a big thing. Maybe they're trying to do their fashion or makeup on TikTok, or I feel like they're trying to be trendsetters in some way. The Lisa character, somehow does what they want. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they are all on social media, because maybe Christy, who's like the bitchy A girl who they lie about, and they also have to be doing something in their social media that they're lying about that they get caught on. And I know that's a pretty wide berth, but I guess I feel like I'd have to stew on that for a little bit. Like, what's something that they can try to be good at, something that's a facade, and that's something that gets revealed at the reunion. And I don't know off the top of my head what that is.
I agree. I think that Romy and Michele should both still follow and like and comment on all of Christy Masters' posts. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's been 10 years. We actually get to see her in real life again. And then when they do, they're talking about all these different things she's posted over the years that she doesn't remember anymore. But they kind of transitioned from being pseudo friends, like high school, well, we kind of know each other, to being fans of hers. And then they realized that she's not the person that they thought she was. She never was that person. And I feel like a big emotional arc for them will be to unfollow her and kind of start following the people who were following them.
So do you think that Chrissy should still be really mean to them in high school, though? Because she was really awful to them.
I mean, I don't think they need to be the quote-unquote fat girl, because she wasn't fat in the movie, and the girl with the back brace. I don't think you need physical impediments in order to be unpopular. Believe me, I needed no physical impediments to be unpopular.
Oh, yeah, same here.
But I feel like it can just be they just didn't have it. They just they knew each other, but they were just kind of awkward and uncomfortable people, because all they could talk about was each other. They would either be talking with each other or about each other. And eventually that just becomes tiring for everyone else.
Yeah. And also, I also feel like, at least with the few high schoolers I know today, there still is a pressure to conform. So,
yes,
like in high school, they were kind of the only kids who liked Madonna, and everyone thought that they were crazy. Or they were the only, maybe they're into fashion or something, but the looks that they're putting out there are just so not the norm that they're made fun of.
Yeah. Well, another thing that we could use in terms of the Christy Masters relationship is their claim to fame, or the thing that they think is still really cool, is that Christy Masters, with 2 million followers and a blue check mark, follows them back because she's followed them back since high school. However, what they'll find out over the course of the movie... So there's a difference between being muted and being blocked. If you're being blocked, basically you can't see anything the person posts, you can't interact with them, you are a ghost to them. But if you're muted, you still think you're interacting with everything the person is doing, and the person can still be following you, but they won't see any of it. And I think something that we can discover over the course of the movie is that Christy Masters didn't block them because that would mean that she would have lost followers, but she muted them, so they still think they're interacting with her, but she hasn't seen something that they've done for years.
Okay, uh-huh.
And that will feel like a betrayal. Because they're like, well, we thought we were friends. And no, we were never friends. We were high school colleagues.
Right.
But then, and it'll turn out that that's kind of something that Christy Masters does with everyone who follows her. Like, anyone who follows her, she mutes them. So she's muted 2 million people, and she really only follows herself. And all that she sees on her Instagram and timeline are just her own posts over and over and over again.
Okay, that's interesting. I like that.
Because the only social media perception she cares about is how people are perceiving her.
Right.
Nothing else matters.
Right.
Which, on the one hand, is dark and not at all healthy. But on the other hand, it's like, okay, no one needs to care about anyone else's life, so I kind of get it. But also, wow. And so, like, that's her weird dark thing. Because it's like, oh, look at them. They left high school and then got pregnant. That's not... No. But someone who went and became, kind of internet famous, but doesn't actually, like, interact or appreciate the people who made them internet famous, I feel like that's now the new cardinal sin.
Right. Like shaming for not being one of the people, not being, like, part of the group that you're allegedly supporting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that. So that's what I think that's what I think their relationship with Christy Masters can be. Who, whether she has her 2 other friends or not, I don't really care. I didn't recast them. But then in terms of Romy and Michele, like, their claim to fame can be that they're followed by this famous person, and if they're gonna live in LA, I mean, what would be funny would be if they have hopped from every single internet fad to the next one. They tried to be Vine stars, but by the time Vine ended, they moved on to the next one, and then the next one. And they have every single social media account, but they never stick with anyone long enough for it to hit. So, like, even now, they're just getting into TikTok, but oh no, they just heard about this one, so now all of a sudden they're asking all of their followers to follow them to this next thing. And there could be a couple people who will have followed them from platform to platform to platform, like Sandy Frink, let's say. But overall, basically because they're not comfortable with who they are or what they're doing, they're not sticking around and doing an individual thing long enough to actually develop a following in that thing. Because they're always trying to capture the fame of whatever the new
next best thing is.
So yeah, they're absolutely on TikTok, but they're already looking to see what the next big thing is. Like they subscribed to Quibi immediately.
Right.
But, Quibi died. Like, that sort of thing.
Right.
That's my pitch for what they are. They haven't even figured out what their voice is yet. And I feel like this will be a movie where they figure out that voice is not necessarily the person that they're putting forward of, I want to be popular, but this other thing that they've been doing, which can very easily still be clothing design.
Right. And what maybe part of that is maybe jumping off of your idea, they're always following the next best thing trend-wise as well, so they see what's hot and then they try to do the same thing. But it's never as good as whoever did it first. Because I feel like...
Yeah, they're not...
Like,
They're not innovating, they're following.
Right.
Cool. Yes, I think that's what I think their arc should be. And so then, in terms of our Heather Mooney and our Sandy Frink, I think if we want them to be somehow involved in social media, if that's kind of the arc we're doing for our movie, I think you're right, Sandy Frink. I don't want him to be like the creator of OnlyFans, but I think like having him be the next TikTok or someone who's like figured out a way to do something super minimal of like, yeah, I take iPhone apps and because even in this movie, he invented a rubber for shoes.
Right.
It's not that impressive. He just made a lot of money. Like, he's the person who, like, figured out the algorithm to like, actually track some part of social media. Or, like, he's the one that converts iPhone apps to Android apps.
Right, yeah.
He's involved. It's a necessary piece, but it's not the end-all, be-all.
Right.
And then for Heather Mooney, I feel like Heather Mooney can invent a service that allows people to scrub their presence from the internet.
Huh. Uh-huh.
Like, she can call her service Blackout or something, and it just, like, it will take their entire social media presence away, which is something that I bet a lot of people would like to have, because there are a lot of people who just don't want to be online. And I think that that's a service people would want.
Right.
It also fits kind of the goth aesthetic.
Oh, yeah. I think we want to keep her goth, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't know. What do you think about those two ideas?
I like him, actually. And, I apologize in advance. I didn't really think that through beforehand.
Neither did I. I've discovered them here with
on the fly. I love it.
Yeah. And then in terms of, like, Billy Christensen, yeah, his best days were in high school. He still just talks about the things that happened in high school and just remembers high school.
But of course,
a job that he doesn't love.
Him and Christy have, like, this amazing online presence where they're totally happy and in love and, like, walking over waterfalls. And then when you see them in person, they can't stand each other.
Yeah. So, are you aware of that Instagram couple who kept posting the pictures of them holding hands, and she was walking in front of him, and he was taking a picture of, like, her back as she was leading him somewhere?
No.
And they were doing that in all these different like really scenic places, but it was basically like the same picture, like her looking super put together, but you're really only seeing her from behind as they're holding hands, and she's leading him to wherever the cool, like the Taj Mahal or whatever.
No.
I think if you saw one of the, I feel like I'm describing it poorly, but I feel like if you saw one of these pictures, you'd be like, oh yeah, one of these. But basically, gotcha. Like, their entire relationship was her on camera and him being the one taking the picture. And I feel like that could be the relationship for Christy Masterson and Billy Christensen.
Oh, yeah.
Which I'm just now picking up on Christy and Christensen.
Yes.
Just like the whitest.
Christy Christensen. Ew.
Yeah, that's pretty Jesus-y.
Yeah. Ugh. I mean, don't you have people like that in your high school, though, who, like, married right out of high school and are miserable?
I might. Like I said, I don't remember. And they're certainly not people I talk to now, really. The number of people I remember from high school is fairly limited.
There's something nice about being able to control who comes in and out of your life as an adult.
Yeah, this is true. But okay, so I think we kind of have our characters and our arcs and what we want them to learn and grow with. So one of the things I think I'm going to be trying with this season of Ideal Remake is I'm going to be putting in ads from other people's podcasts right before we get to the casting. So if I did this correctly, there should be an ad right now.
Hi, I'm Tanner.
And I'm Lindsay.
And together we host a podcast called Not If I Reboot You First.
It's a show where we take our favorite properties and reboot them before Hollywood gets the chance to.
We also do adaptations and spin-offs and sequels, but everybody seems to call those reboots too.
It's everyone's favorite buzzword.
Sometimes we make something really good, like when we turned The Mummy into a proper pilot for the Dark Universe.
Sometimes things go bad and I drunkenly yell at J.K. Rowling for an hour.
And sometimes it gets really weird and we time crash the entire Mighty Ducks franchise into a single universe.
So join us every week for something that's a little bit like brainstorming fanfiction.
Follow us on Twitter at NIIRYFPod. Those are the letters for the name of the show, and it's pronounced Near.
I turned Princess Belle into Iron Man once.
Wait, what?
All right, so I feel like we need to start with our Romy and our Michele. And because it's a two-hander, I didn't necessarily cast two people who necessarily know each other, but I feel like we should present all of them, all four, and then from the four we pick our two favorites.
Ooh, okay.
So I'm happy to start with someone, and then the person I had as my Romy, and then you can start with your Romy, and then I'll do my Michele, you'll do your Michele, and we'll kind of talk about the four that we've got. Seem fair?
Yeah, and can I preface something though? I think one of the challenges for me in casting this is I think when it was shot, Mira was 30 and Lisa Kudrow was in her 30s. it's just, as you know, it's just so much harder to cast 20-somethings as opposed to even early 30-somethings, because a lot of 20-somethings don't have a career record. Like, you just don't know where they're going yet.
Yeah.
So it is, I just want to say, like, it's harder for me to cast what could be age appropriate, just because a lot of the younger actresses.
Yeah. I feel like we have a little bit of a flex, really in either direction, but like, as long as they kind of like fit the tone and everything. I feel like the person who is the oldest is the woman I casted for my Toby Walters. But overall, I kind of tried really hard to hit the age range. Mm-hmm. But if we're around the age range, I think it's fine. As long as you didn't cast someone who's like 35, because gosh, that would be terrible. I don't know. We'll figure it out. If they're still right for the role, I'm sure it's fine. This is a movie about friendship, and people can be friends at any age.
True. Yes.
And so I think that I don't think we need to be as strict with age in this one. But let's see who we had. So for my Romy, I went with someone who kind of first came to prominence in a movie called Fighting with My Family, although most people now know her from her role in Little Women. It's Florence Pugh.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see that.
I thought that she'd make for a fun Romy. It's a little bit of a different kind of character than she's played before, but I think she would do it very well.
Gotcha. Okay. Love it.
Who did you have for your Romy?
So I had my Romy and Michelle sort of as either or, but the more you're forcing me to think about it,
I mean, either or is fine.
I had as a possible Romy, and maybe as a way to bring a little more diversity to the cast, Tessa Thompson.
Yep, that doesn't surprise me. That's great casting.
I thought that she really surprisingly showed off her comedic chops as Valkyrie, which I wasn't expecting. Yep. And I think she could play dumb really smart.
What a great way to word that.
Well, you know, Mira Sorvino did go to Harvard, and Lisa Kudrow went to my alma mater, Vassar. So you do have these two really smart women, like, playing dumb. And they nail it.
Yeah, they do. They do a great job. Cool. Good choice. So the person I had is my Michelle, but again, I also kind of see them as interchangeable. It's just the style of this particular kind of person that they're playing. I'm gonna butcher this name. This actress is named Francia Reza, Francia, and then Reza is Raisa. She is also, I think, late 20s, early 30s. I don't specifically remember. She is currently on Grownish. She first broke. She was on Secret Life of the American Teenager.
Mm-hmm.
She is, because she's on Grownish, she's able to do like the comedy and stuff. But then she also kind of has the history and the background of doing like kind of the teenage drama, and that's Secret Life of the American Teenager. I mean, she's always she has yet to be kind of the star, and that's kind of why I put her. Oh, I guess I should have put her as my Romy in that case. Doesn't matter. But like, she's been in a variety of different things. She was in Blackish for a little bit. She's in Shut Eye, and she's never been like the lead, but she's always there as someone who is also there and good. And so I thought that she would make for a fun one of our two ladies. And she also, for anyone who's not looking her up, she is Mexican and Honduran, born and raised in Los Angeles. And for a movie that supposedly takes place in Tucson, Arizona, sure, we're a lot of white people. And I went to a fairly white high school, but like, it's Arizona.
Right. Love it.
So, who did you have as your other person?
God, I got to narrow it down to two, huh? Or narrow it down to one. Can I give two names or no?
I mean, you can. We'll see what happens. Give the two names.
I think that they would. I think they're both good, and they would both do it a little differently, but they're both of similar type. So, okay. And I guess it also. So, if we had a big budget, I would say Margot Robbie.
Okay.
Or Robbie, sorry. And if we had a smaller budget, I would say Lily Reinhardt. So Margot, like, everyone knows who she is, and I'm impressed with her comedy chops. Also, I think she would play it. You know, she might actually be a better Romy than Michele, now that I think about it. But I think Lily...
For people who don't know who Lily Reinhardt is, tell us about her.
Sure. So she first came on my radar when I saw her in Hustlers. Oh my God, the J-Lo vehicle.
Yes.
And she sort of had like the stereotypical comedic relief dumb blonde role in it. And she did it really well. But she also brought a depth and a vulnerability, which I think Michele also needs to have. And she's like gorgeous, and I don't know, I could just see her. I feel like her star is also rising a lot now, and she could just really pull it off.
Yeah, what most other people will know her from is she is Betty in Riverdale.
Oh, yeah, duh. Right.
So of the 5 people that we've put forward, I would say let's pair Lily Reinhardt with Francia Reza.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think that's fun.
Who would you make Romy? Who would you make Michele?
I think Lily would have to be Michele.
Okay.
I just feel like Francesca, right?
Francia, I don't know how to pronounce it.
I feel like when I see what she's done, you know, obviously neither of these women are like the brightest bulbs, whatever. But I feel like of the two, Romy is the one who's a little more self-aware, and I feel like she'd be able to carry that off better.
Yeah, I think she's also the one who has a little bit more agency as opposed to just happily going along with everything.
Yes, agreed.
But cool. So Lily Reinhardt and Francia Reza. I think that is our Romy and Michele. Excellent. So then next, we have your spirit animal, Heather Mooney.
Ooh, okay. So I don't know if you're an Iggy Azalea fan, Sam.
I'm aware of her.
So she has a music video out called, I don't know if I can say it on your podcast. You might have to bleep it. But the song is...
It's fine.
The song is called Fuck It Up.
Okay.
I had never seen it before, but it's a Romy and Michele parody.
Oh, funny.
And they actually have an actress playing Heather Mooney in the video.
Okay.
Played by Chloe Fineman from SNL. Usually when I see Chloe on SNL, she plays like younger characters. She's like kind of goofy looking, very energetic, ball of energy.
Mm-hmm. And she was pulling off goth?
Not well. So so the reason why I brought that up is it made me think of other SNL people, and I ended up settling with Kate McKinnon.
Got it. Okay. Who everyone is familiar with. The actress who I wanted to play Heather Mooney is in the remake or the TV show they're doing of Heathers. She also was in a project called Florida Girls and the upcoming League of Her Own. She's also someone who very much her star is rising right now. And the kind of characters she portrays kind of felt a little bit more within the Janine Garofalo goth aesthetic. This actress's name is Melanie Field.
Oh, yeah, I can totally see it.
But because because Heather Mooney is your spirit animal, I don't want to go with Melanie Field unless you're okay with it.
Oh, no, I'm totally okay with it.
All right, cool. Then let's do that. That brings us to Sandy Frink. Sandy was tough for me.
Oh, see, this was easy for me, and I can only see one person playing it.
All right, cool. Then you'll go second for this one. Sandy was tough for me because they have that kind of like goofy dance number at the end, which is like when you're watching it, you're like, this is incredibly silly. But at the same time, it's like, look at these people just having the confidence to do this in front of all these people.
Yeah, I found it actually very moving.
Yeah, live your bliss, have this moment, whatever. And so I did want someone who can dance. Perhaps not as well or as iconically as Alan Cummings, but someone who is doing well. So I went and I found someone from the TV show Bunheads.
Oh.
He's also in something called The Upshaws, and he's also a musician. This actor's name is Casey J. Adler.
Okay, yep.
And so he's kind of a one-for-one in terms of who the character is in the movie, but I feel like he would work as kind of the new young Alan Cummings. Look at this kid. He's going to go be in Josie and the Pussycats Wednesday, and it's going to be great.
I
love Josie and the
Did you do a podcast for Josie and the Pussycats?
No, that's a tough one, because that movie's so specific, and it did so poorly, but I love that movie so much. It's so good.
I don't know. It might have to be remade, Sam.
It might have to be remade. It's definitely a movie that, it's definitely a movie that more people should watch. And if we need to do a remake to get more people to watch it, I'm for it. I'm open to doing that episode.
Love it. Love it.
I love that movie. But who did you have?
You know, the name pops into my head, and now I can't see it as anything else. Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah, I can see that. What I would love is if you made him unrecognizable in the young version, especially because he's so close to high school age.
Oh, God, yeah, I guess he is pretty young, huh?
I mean, he's 25, but yeah, that's fine. I'm willing to give that one to you, especially if that's all you can see in the role. I feel like he's the one who, looks like he's in high school now, and then you figure out ways to age him up for the older scenes.
Well, plus, by the time we get our financing and production, it'll be another 3 years before we do our remake.
Sure. I mean, at that point, some of the people we cast will be in their late 30s.
That's true.
But yeah, Timothée Chalamet is just fine for me for Sandy Frank. So that brings us to Christy Masters. Who did you have for Christy Masters?
Oh, it's a little obvious, I think, but Emma Stone.
Yeah, that I can see that. That is certainly within the realm of possibility. That certainly fits. Yeah, that works, and I can't comment on that because I kind of went to a similar well with my casting. I cast Shailene Woodley from Divergent, from Descendants, from The Fault in Our Stars, who first became famous from Secret Life of the American Teenager.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Totally can see that, too.
Yeah. I mean, this is a bit of a toss-up. They're both... I mean, I would say Emma Stone's a little bit more of an A-lister than Shailene Woodley is, because I especially don't actually know what Shailene Woodley's been doing lately. I don't know. I feel like Emma Stone's career has taken her more to the blockbuster, big-ticket movie, and Shailene Woodley, especially after doing, The Descendants and everything, is kind of stepping back into, the dramas and stuff, because after she did The Fault in Our Stars and all that.
God, I still haven't seen Big Little Lies yet.
I feel like you would enjoy it. I say that as someone who hasn't myself watched it, but I feel like you would like it.
As long as it's not too soapy, I'm just not big on, big soapy,
Yeah. I feel like either one of them would work. I really have no preference.
Yeah, I don't really have a preference. I mean, we'd probably be more likely to get, as you said, Shailene Woodley.
Probably.
Yeah.
Tell you what, let's leave it. Both are fine. Whichever one of us gets more people before we get to writer-director, the other one will get this one. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right, cool. So let's talk about Vogue Lady. Let's talk about Lisa. And here's where I bring up a weird fact. So even though this is a movie about me and my life and how I live in LA and went back to Tucson for my 10-year high school reunion, someone I went to not someone I went to college with, but someone from my college who graduated years before I was ever there, but someone who went to Colorado College is now one of the editors or something at Vogue, and I find that very funny.
Wow.
And I don't know her name. But it was this other weird little connection. I was like, oh, weird.
Life.
So I thought that was funny.
Life imitating art, imitating life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it.
So I wanted to go with someone who very much could do fashion, who very much could fit in with the popular kids, but also could very easily slip away from the popular kids. And I once again went to the Little Women well, and I pulled Saoirse Ronan.
Oh, yeah, that's a good choice.
And I thought she'd be a fun choice for Lisa the Vogue Lady.
Yeah.
Who did you have?
I had Meredith Hagner, who...
I don't know who that is.
She is one of the stars of Search Party, and she also has, a really good comic timing. And she's really good at playing bitchy.
Oh, yeah, and she's in Palm Springs. She's great. Let's go with her.
Nice. I still have not seen Palm Springs yet.
Ooh, I love Palm Springs. I really do. It's great.
Is it a thriller?
No. It is a quirky comedy.
Oh, well, then I would totally love it.
Yep.
Do you remember her in that? Is she any good?
She's not a main character, but she's in it and she's great.
Love it.
I mean, describing her character, she's very good. If she's who I think she is, but I'm pretty sure she is. So then, the only other two people I have cast are Billy Christensen and Toby Walters. Did you have anything else beyond those two, or did you have those two?
So for Toby, I'm going to take one of my previous people who wasn't cast, and I'll pitch Kate McKinnon again.
Okay. I went with an actress who is also in Search Party. She's also in I Love Dick and Two Dope Queens. Her name is Phoebe Robinson.
Oh, okay.
She is probably the oldest person in my cast, but I think the original Toby Walters was also the oldest person in the original cast, so I don't really think that matters.
Right.
And I wanted someone who I wouldn't describe as like conventional model, beautiful, but still Hollywood attractive. And I thought that could fit kind of like the not recognizable, because I don't want Kate McKinnon for the role of like, this is the person that everyone keeps brushing off, because it's like, oh, Kate McKinnon, she's going to be important later.
Right.
I want this to be someone people don't necessarily recognize, but is still very good, very heartfelt. It's like, but can you please not tell me to fuck off, because that really hurts my feelings. Oh, I made your life miserable, of course. And so I thought Phoebe Robinson would be really good at that role.
Yeah, I'm totally down with that.
Cool. And then did you have anyone for Billy Christensen or no?
I did not.
Okay, then let me tell you about who I have. I don't know if Paul has made you watch very much Scream Queens, but this actor is in Scream Queens. He's also in Rock of Ages, and he's in Terminator Dark Fate. This actor is named Diego Boneta.
Wait, Diego, what's his last name?
Boneta.
Oh, Boneta.
Boneta.
Well, if he looks good with his shirt off.
I mean, that's basically the rule, right?
That's the rule. I'm looking for shirtless pics. I don't see any. I don't know. I'm disappointed, Sam.
Once again,
oh no, here's one. Oh yeah, he looks good with the shirt off.
Okay, cool. That's all we need then. In that case, let's go with Emma Stone for Christy Masters.
Oh, sure.
Did you have any other cast before we get to writer-director?
No.
Then that gives us 4 and 4, so I think that's who we go with.
Awesome. Love it.
But yeah, I thought Diego would be a fun choice for Billy Christensen, and yeah. So that's our cast, and now we're going to go to writer and director. I have a separate writer and director, because again, it's a movie about these two women, so I wanted both a female writer and a female director. Did you have two separate people, or did you have a writer-director, a singular person?
I had a director, and I didn't think too much about who to have as the writer.
Okay, then let me tell you about my writer, then you tell me about your director, and then you...
I actually do have someone as a potential writer, but I don't know. Yeah, you go first.
Okay. So the writer I have, it has done kind of the quirky, romantic movie before, and she's done that both on film, and she's done that for TV. She wrote To All the Boys I've Loved Before, and she was also one of the writers on Man Seeking Woman. And that blend of comedy and romance, I think, fits kind of the tone of what we're going for. Like, even if it's like building relationships and everything isn't necessarily about romantic relationships, I still feel like that works for what we're doing. And this writer's name is Sofia Alvarez. She also wrote something called Camp Blood, the musical.
Oh, well, she has my heart already then. I love musicals and I love horror. So if it's a horror musical, I am there.
Actually, it's looking like she didn't write it, but she was in it. Because I think this is from like when she was younger. But yeah, Man Seeking Woman, and To All the Boys I've Loved Before. That's
love it.
Kind of her two claims to fame right now. So yeah, I thought she'd be a fun writer for this.
Yeah, I'm down to go with her.
Then who did you have for director?
I had Olivia Wilde.
Tell me why.
Because she did Booksmart, which I feel is also like dealing with younger people, comedy, smart comedy. I don't know. I think that she'd do an interesting take on it. Okay.
I think that's fair. Let me tell you about who I have. the woman I had to direct this hasn't directed that much. I know she has a bunch of stuff in production right now, but the movie that everyone will have seen that she's done is Booksmart, and but she's had a long career as an actress before then, and I just think Olivia Wilde would be an excellent director for this movie.
You don't
also had
say.
Olivia Wilde.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Psychic
I love it.
twins.
I mean, it fits. Like, Booksmart is about that kind of like friendship relationship that is just like you found this person.
Yes.
And even though Booksmart's resolution is that like you can still be friends even if you're not always together, I still feel like that appreciation for and acceptance of what high school is now versus what kind of our Hollywood perception of high school is in Booksmart is just so good and so well portrayed that I think Olivia Wilde did such an amazing job.
Yeah, agreed. And yeah, the relationships feel real and the whole caste system feels real. Yeah, just like a real way that kids interact with each other.
Completely agree. Cool. All right. So that's our cast. Let me take you through our Romy and Michelle's high school reunion. Our Romy White is going to be played by Francia Reza. Michelle Weinberg is going to be Lily Reinhardt. Heather Mooney is going to be Melanie Field. Sandy Frink is going to be Timothée Chalamet. Christy Masters is going to be Emma Stone. Lisa, the Vogue lady, will be Meredith Hagner. Billy Christensen is going to be Diego Boneta. Toby Walters will be portrayed by Phoebe Robinson. All of this will be written by Sofia Alvarez and directed by Olivia Wilde. And that is our movie. You gonna go see this?
Oh, I would see that. Because I came into this with a healthy dose of skepticism, Sam. I'm not gonna lie. Like this,
That's fair.
I've seen this movie like 30 times. I feel like it's one of my favorite comedies. I think the acting is so superb all around. Like there really isn't a weak link acting wise in any of this.
I agree with that too.
So it was hard for me to go in thinking like, gosh, like what would make it worthwhile to get an ideal remake? But I think we did it.
Cool. Good for us.
Good for us.
In that case, thank you so much for being my guest for this episode. Like, I didn't say this at the beginning, but when the idea of remaking this movie was put in my head, the only person I could think of that I could do this, like, who I could remake this movie with was you. Like, because I know it's your favorite movie, you're the only person I asked. I was like, oh, I have to ask Josh to remake this movie with me.
Thank you. I really do appreciate that. And, just
You're
as
welcome. It's your movie.
As a sentimental thank you, this is a movie that me and my friend Chad Davis, who passed last month, unfortunately, really great guy, one of my best friends, we would quote this movie ad infinitum to each other. And we always had arguments who was the Mary and who was the Rhoda. Eventually, I was always the Rhoda because I am the Jewish one. So, but this movie just brings up so many warm, nostalgic fuzzies for me. I really thank you for the opportunity to participate with this.
Of course, and that's a really sweet thing to bring to this movie. I think like that's always one of the great things about friendship is just having this piece of like this outside piece that you're like, it's us, but in this other thing. And I always think that's super fun. Like I have friends who I have a thing that will quote ad infinitum or infinitum, however the word's pronounced, with each other. And I think that's just so important. And I'm glad that you two had this movie for that, because this is a perfect movie for that.
Yes, this movie really is a testament to friendship.
Yeah. So now to follow up something heartfelt with something that we've kind of been talking about all episode. So, you have anything you want to promote? Any social medias you want people to follow?
Oh my god!
Brand new Instagram?
No, I don't have anything on there yet, but I am getting my. So I do stand-up comedy. I'm performing tomorrow in Canada, La Crescenta.
La Cañada.
La Cañada, thank you. But by the time this airs, I will have already performed.
What is your social media? What is your Instagram?
Oh my god, I think it's just my name. Like, I literally don't have anything on there yet. I don't even think I've checked it yet. Hold on. No, I seriously, just got an account like a week and a half ago.
Perfect timing.
Okay, so it's Joshua Koffman. It's just my name. Joshua
Followed.
Koffman. But there ain't anything on there yet.
Well, I have the distinct honor of being your very first follower.
Oh, thank you, Sam.
You're very welcome. Fun. I mean, and I think that being the person who's starting a new social media account, especially after the episode that we just created, is appropriate and good, and I like it. And good for you.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
If you're interested in following me, I am at Sam Gasch, SamGasch, on Twitter. Or you can follow the podcast at Ideal Remake, or on Twitter or Instagram, or join us on Facebook, Ideal Remake or Ideal Remake Podcast. Yeah. So check those places out, or the thing you could do that would really be amazing is to go online and subscribe to Ideal Remake. You can subscribe and follow or on any podcatcher, and that would work well. And I think over the hiatus, I have some new Ideal Remake reviews, so I wanted to thank the people who wrote those reviews. Let me pull that up. We had someone named Eddie Love who said, a great concept that is truly so much fun to listen to, so thank you very much to them. Someone named Unbreakable Liz said, this is a fun concept. I enjoy the nostalgia of visiting some of my favorite childhood movies and contemplating how they could be improved and modernized in ways that are thoughtful and creative. Sam is a great host, and he invites guests with diverse and interesting perspectives. I highly recommend this podcast. So I wanted to say thank you both so much for taking the time to leave some reviews. Those always help, and that is how people find the podcast. If you want to do something to help this podcast or any podcast, going on to Apple Podcasts and leaving a 5-star review is amazingly helpful. So yeah, that takes us to the end of this episode. So, Josh, once again, thank you for being my guest. So we'll end with this. What is your favorite quote, or the quote you can think of right now, from Romy and Michele's high school reunion?
Oh, wow, so many. So many. I'm trying to think of my favorite. I'll go with the one that I laugh at every single time. What kind of business you girls in?